Act 4, Scene 5 is the morning of the wedding, and the nurse goes in to wake up Juliet. You got all those words with exclamation points after them, because basically the nurse is walking down the hall yelling for Juliet to wake up. And she says, "Mistress, what mistress? Juliet fast, yada, yada, yada." And then she ends with, "I hope that you got a lot of rest last night, because Paris, who you're supposed to marry tonight, is going to make sure you don't get any rest tonight." At line 11, the nurse continues this joke, and she says, "Look, if you don't get up now, I'm going to send Paris in to wake you up." Now, Juliet had kind of like a sheet or like a curtain in front of her bed, so she pulls aside the curtain, and all of a sudden she sees Juliet laying there. And Juliet's still dressed in her clothes and won't wake up, and at this point she realizes something's wrong, and she starts yelling, "She's dead, she's dead, she's dead. Give me some aquavitae," which is liquor. Juliet's mom comes in and gets really upset, and they start talking about how sad they are, and she says, "I hope you have to get up, you have to revive, otherwise I'm going to die with you." And they call for more help, and they call for Juliet's dad. Juliet's dad says, "Juliet, you gotta get up. He's walking down the hall, and again, it's wrong. The nurse and Juliet's mom say she's dead, and then Capulet talks about how death lies on her like an untimely frost upon the sweetest flower of all the field. Basically, like Juliet's a flower, and it was one of those spring days when it's been warm for a while, and then all of a sudden you get one of those random freak show cold nights, and a frost covers everything, and all the flowers end up dying. Basically, she died way before she was supposed to. At line 32, they're still really upset, and Juliet's dad says, "I'm so upset by this, I can't even talk." At this point, Friar Lawrence and Paris come. Paris, who's still expecting to see Juliet alive because he's supposed to get married, and Friar, who really knows what's going on, and so he's going to be pretty calm, cool, collected about this whole thing, because he can't obviously tell the parents what's going on, but he knows Juliet isn't dead because of was the one who gave her the potion. Friar asks if Juliet's ready to go to church, and Dad says, "No, death has lain with thy wife. Death took her virginity. Death, she's married to death now." At line 40, she says, "Flower she was, deflowered by him." Deflower is another term for losing her virginity, and so this flower was deflowered by death, and now death is the only thing he has. Death is his son-in-law, death is his heir, which he had hoped to get from Juliet, and everything he has belongs to death. Paris, who's clearly very upset by this, is shocked and said, "How could fate do this to me? How could life do this to me?" And Mom says, at line 46, that everything she has is gone, and she only had one child, and now death has taken that too. The nurse continues and says, "Oh, woeful, woeful, woeful day." She says it a lot over and over and over. Ferris is upset too, and he keeps talking about how terrible it is that she died. Lord Capulet is also really, really upset and says, "My child is dead, and with my child my joys are buried." Everything that he had to be happy about, even though if you remember back to the scene when he was trying to convince Juliet to marry, both he and wife talked about how they wish she was dead, and they don't want anything to do with her. But now that she actually seems to be dead, and they think she is, they're really upset by that. Friar Lawrence now says, again, Friar Lawrence knows what's going on, so he's very calm and rational in his explanation and his advice to them, and says, "You don't have any reason to be upset," and we're at about line 68. "You don't have any reason to be upset. Before she died, heaven had part of her because she was religious, and you had part of her, and now heaven has all of her, and so she's better off than she was before." Line 74, he said, "You should be happy, because now she's up in the clouds, up into heaven itself." He then goes on at line 78 or so and says, she's not well married that lives married long, but she's best married that dies married young. Again, he's kind of talking in ways that the family doesn't understand, but she is married right now, and they think she's dead, so she's well off. But he's not being honest with them. He's not being dishonest with them, but again, kind of like Juliet does, he's not really telling them all the truth. Friar ends his speech with, prepare Juliet for the burial, okay, just as the custom is in this town. Okay? And you need to get moving with this. Juliet's dad says, everything that we had set up for our wedding is now going to be turned into a funeral. All the music will just be changed, and the ornaments will be changed. And at line 90, he says, all things them to the contrary. Everything that they were going to do for the wedding is now the funeral. Friar says, we need to do this immediately. Okay? And his main point, which he says at lines 94 and 95, heaven do lower upon you some ill. Move them no more by crossing their high will. Look, fate has dealt you a bad hand. Okay? And the heavens, looking down, are either punishing you or frowning upon you. And don't do anything to make the heavens more angry with you, or they may punish you more. Now, after this really intense scene, everyone thinks she's passed away. We don't really know. Romeo at this point doesn't know yet. We don't know what's going to end up happening to Juliet. It's a pretty intense part. Now we get some more comic relief, which I'm not going to really go into because it's not really funny. But it's the musicians talking about how they're all the things that they were going to do for the funeral, or for the wedding, now they're going to do for the funeral. And it's not funny. And the bell just rang. So that is the end of Act 4.